What's up, everybody? I've never done really a non-technical video per se on YouTube before. So, but I find it hilarious that there's so many people out there that think that the Earth is flat. I'm having a hard time not keeping a straight face here. Um, so let me just preface this by saying I am not a scientist, so I have other than what I can find on Google, and I'm sure there's going to be somebody that says, yeah, Google will restrict your search results to only showing you pictures of a round Earth. Um, okay, fine, if that's your argument, all right. I still think it's a stupid argument, but hey, you're entitled to your opinion. Um, I'm a believer that the Earth is round. There's nothing that you or anybody else is going to do to make me change that theory. I have, well, I've heard some somewhat logical explanations of people saying the only reason that the Earth is flat is if it wasn't flat, people would be falling off of Earth. And I'm like, okay. So the logic is if you are living in the top half of the Earth over here in the upper left hand corner of my screen, then you would be okay, right? But if you were down here, you would be falling off. Okay. So I'm like, okay, that's so I will hear the argument or the opinion of the individual, and I've watched some people on I'll name drop because they're big stars on YouTube. Like on the Joe Rogan Experience, I watch that every now and again. And Eddie Bravo is a huge flat earther, which I find it. And I've watched some of their deep dives, and I'm like, dude, just they're like, oh, fisheye camera, or I'm sorry, fisheye lens and Photoshop. Oh, but that's cool. You can believe what you want to believe. I just find it belly laugh funny that people think that. So there's a couple things that I would argue that would make the Earth round and not flat. So the first one is if the Earth is flat, there's gonna have to be some sort of edge eventually, right? And to my knowledge, no one's ever fallen off the Earth. I have a hard time keeping a straight face when I talk about this. Then so I could imagine the argument being, well, they could never live to tell about it if they did. Plausible. They fall off the Earth, they're gone. So in this black abyss around Earth. And I suppose that's plausible too, but it's not at all plausible. So you can't fall off of something if you never reach the edge of it. And explorers that we studied about in elementary and middle school in social studies and geography, they too thought the Earth was flat, and they would get in their boats and they would sail the seven seas to find the edge of the world, and they would never find one because there is no edge of the world. And so my next argument would be, if the Earth was flat, then how do you explain day and night? It gets dark at night and it gets light during the day. You have a dawn and you have a dusk where it transitions from light to dark, and you have a dawn which it transitions from dark to light. And I've never heard anybody really come back with an argument as to why that is. So it's like, well, one plausible way is, well, if the Earth was flat, then it would always be light, or it would always be dark, right? Because there would be you're facing towards the sun during the day. So how do you explain, if the Earth wasn't round, how do you explain light and dark, night and day, and stuff like that? Because I work for an organization where we're global, and it can be 9 o'clock in the morning my time, and all the way around the world at it can be I don't know how many hours ahead Tokyo is from me, but let's say it's 12, 14 hours. If it's 8 o'clock in the morning my time, it's 10 o'clock at night their time. Well, how would you explain that? If the Earth wasn't round, how would you explain that? And the simple answer is the Earth is round. And when you have the Coriolis effect, which is the rotation of the Earth, if that wasn't there, then it would always be day wherever you are. Now, there are some exceptions to this rule when you get further towards one of either the North or the South Pole, when you are closer to when the diameter, or I should say the circumference of your rotation is much smaller than it is down near the center. So if you're up here near the top of the North Pole, obviously you're going to be spending a lot more time in day. And depending on where you are in the world, I also know there's places that there's only a few hours of daylight and it's mostly darkness. So it does vary to a degree, but for the majority of the Earth, you have more than a few hours of darkness. On average, it gets dark where I live at, right now it's about 5:30, 6 o'clock, and it becomes dawn about 12 hours later. About 6 a.m. is when it becomes bright again, which means, and I'm in the upper Midwest, so as the Earth is rotating, it's going to stay dark while my half of the world is facing away from the sun, and then as the Earth rotates on its axis, which is like this, I think it's at like a 33-degree angle. I could be wrong on that. It's going to come back in, and eventually it'll start to get bright again, like it is right now. You guys can't see it because I'm on a green screen, but it's daylight. It is 3:33 p.m. and it's bright out. Now at 9:33 p.m., when it's nighttime where I live, it'll be dark out, and that is an effect of rotation of the Earth. And some might argue that if you take a piece of paper and you rotate it, that's the same effect. Well, I disagree with that logic, and I don't have a ball sitting on my desk, but if I did, you would have like a baseball rotates, like a sphere rotates, so does the Earth. It rotates on an axis, and I've never had a one-on-one argument or a discussion with somebody that is a flat earther, but I find it hilarious that folks think that that's the case. And there's other people that are like, well, you fall off. Okay, well, the reason why you don't fall off, and the reason why that things work that they do, is one, the Earth spins, which causes centrifugal force. Centrifugal force keeps you, initiates gravity, which keeps your feet tied to the ground. And if you jump, you are going to exert more pressure upwards than there is downward pressure, which is also referred to as gravity, and that's going to bring you back down to the Earth. So you might only be able to, that's why whatever goes up must come down, Newton's law of gravity. I mean, if you took basic Earth space science in high school or middle school, this is like gravity. There are physics laws that cannot be argued. So that would be my other thing. Is like, if the Earth was flat, I could understand some flat earther people having that perspective, but where their perspective gets debunked is the rotation of the Earth. Now, some people would say, well, the pictures that you have on your background are just photoshopped or someone's interpretation, and that's fine if that's how you want to look at it. I mean, if you look at this, you have the curvature of the Earth. If you look, I mean, I've been to the ocean before. If you look out over the ocean, at a certain point in time, you can't see any further. If the Earth was flat, you would be able to see forever. You go high enough out, you'd be able to keep seeing and seeing and seeing, and you would never see what they call the horizon. So you ever see, there's multiple things that I can use to debunk the flat Earth concept, and the horizon is another one. If there was no horizon and the Earth was flat, you would see Earth forever, as far as the eye could see. And somebody might argue, well, your eyes can't see that far. That's actually 100% incorrect. Your eyes can see for miles. as long as there's light enough. You may not be able to tell what it is, but you'll know that it's something out there. Now, if you're high enough up, you can see further and further and further. But if you're the closer you are to the ground, the less and less space you can see. Now, the reason why that is because, not because your eye is round, and not because the earth, it's not because the earth is flat. It's because the earth is round. So at a certain point in time, you get to, if you're way up here in this corner that I'm pointing towards, and you're looking down, you're going to be able to see everything in that area. But anything that goes beyond that line, where I'm running my mouse, where that little pointer is on the hand, anything that goes beyond that point, you're not going to be able to see because the earth is round. There are... I get a kick out of people that think that the earth is flat. You know, there's that. I could keep going. I mean, those people that think the earth is flat, you know, I feel sorry for you. I really do. You know, there are, you know, would I argue the Big Bang Theory, where the earth was created through an explosion? Sure, why not? But here's the thing. I wouldn't consider myself a skeptic. I wouldn't consider myself a liberal or a conservative in that respect when it comes to science. What I would consider myself is open to interpretation. And some might say, well, you were raised on the traditional thinking of the earth is round, that the sky is blue, the water is blue, and that the grass is green. That's actually not interpretation. That's exactly what I'm seeing. So I'm like, I take things as they are, and it doesn't matter what anybody else tells me. If I can see with my own eyes, then that's the way it is. And there's nothing, no argument that anybody can present with regardless of how they present it or how much factual information they bring, is going to sway my thinking. Because that's the way I see it. I'm a very literal person, and the fact that somebody can sit and say there's a flat Earth. Well, why don't you get in your boat and go across the Pacific Ocean, and from California you're gonna hit Japan eventually, and you're gonna hit Asia, and then you're gonna hit the Middle Eastern areas where like Pakistan and India and Iraq and all that area is, and then you're going to keep going east until you hit Eastern Europe, and then Europe, then you're going to hit the Atlantic Ocean. And you're going to keep going, and you're going to keep going, and eventually if you keep going and you keep going, or you keep going and you keep going, it doesn't matter if you do this or if you do this, you're never going to find the edge, because the earth is round and there is no edge. That's why they have a horizon, and that's why there's a curve to the earth. And a fisheye lens or no fisheye lens, it's still round. So that's my rant. I just thought it was hilarious that people think that that the earth is flat. And so yeah, but I'm not a scientist, and I welcome all of the comments and people that think that they know better than I, any flat earthers out there that want to say you're wrong. You know what? There's no proof that there is a flat earth. That's simple as that. Because anything that's flat eventually will have an edge, and that edge has never been found. Because there is no edge on a round thing. Even on an oval thing, even on a oval, even on like an egg shape, whatever that comes out to be. There's an actual term for that. It doesn't matter. There is no edge, so there is no flat earth. Take it easy, guys.